Tennessee Congressman Tim Burchett writing on social media today, POTUS didn't know that his Secretary of Defense was hospitalized until 4 days later. That's how safe America is right now. Congressman Burchett joining me now. Congressman, good to see you. I want to read this Politico headline because this is what's happening in Washington right now. It reads, the Lloyd Austin fallout is growing. Someone's head has to roll. That is a quote from a DOD official. So I ask you, does someone's head have to roll over this?
Well, what we ought to start looking at is the enormous budget of the Pentagon. They failed the last five audits in the history of audits. They never passed one. They've lost over $500 billion in assets. And how did Congress punish them this last time? I believe we gave them $40 billion more dollars. You know, it's an arrogance. And both sides will write these letters and they'll wink and nod. But the reality is Congress needs to assume its role and cut out all the nonsense at the Pentagon. When you can't find $500 billion in assets, to me, that shows an incredible amount of arrogance. And Congress is a part of that arrogance because our role as the fiscal monitors of this government we've never utilized that. Well, and we always are after the Pentagon. I don't think we should have any sacred cows, ma'am. We take in $5 trillion and spend $7 trillion every year, and the Pentagon is a large part of that.
Well, let's talk about the money here, because today, breaking news, the House and Senate leadership both announced that they've got a top line number now for the remaining 2024 budget, $1.59 trillion, as government funding is about to expire in the next 2 weeks here. Congressman, are you guys actually for certain that you're going to be able to pass a budget in 2 weeks? I mean, appropriations take a while.
Well, obviously, as Schumer is on board with it, that means it gives the Democrats some cover. So the Republicans, we have enough moderate Republicans that'll probably go along with it. I'm currently a no. I'd like to see some real cuts. I'd like to see H.R. 2 passed, some agreement there, and maybe cut back on all the free spending that we've been doing. And until we do that, man, we are falling off a fiscal cliff, and I don't believe our leadership in either party is willing to acknowledge that.
So until whose fault is that, Congressman? Whose fault is that? I mean, this is a deal struck partly by House Speaker Johnson.
Yes, ma'am. I think it's both parties' fault, ma'am, because we just given out the free money, and eventually that debt's going to come due. We run every 2 years, and we're looking to get through the 2-year cycle. And then we'll start over again, and we'll go home and tell our constituents, oh, we're going to cut this, we're going to make cuts, we're going to defund the UN, and we're never going to do any of that stuff because we don't have the guts. Until we get some guts, until we say, for instance, the border, no budget, no border. And I mean, no border, no budget. I had it backwards.
So a lot of your colleagues, have said they're willing to shut down the government if there's no border deal. So you're saying that you would be willing to do that?
Man, we've taken in 8 million people in the last 3 years that we know of. And as a human being, we've lost over 100,000 children. Children, ma'am. Now, where the heck are they going? They're in the cartels and the sex trade and God knows what else they're in, sweatshops, everything else. At some point, man, we've got to take a stand in this country. You know, we didn't take a stand on military spending, and we didn't say that you couldn't have transgender surgeries at taxpayers' expense. We don't want to offend that group. So eventually, ma'am, we're going to have to get some guts and do some things. I would hope some others would join in on this, and I would hope the voters would hold both parties accountable on all those fronts.
Let me ask you about DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. Those impeachment proceedings, they start this week, pretty big for House Republicans trying to make good on their promise. I'm wondering, though, he's been a big part of these Senate negotiations with Senate negotiators on this border deal. Can House Republicans accept anything that comes out of the Senate? Let's say there's legislative text this week. Can y'all accept something that Secretary Mayorkas has been a part of?
If he would quit lying, that's the problem, ma'am. You know, they still won't say there's a crisis at the border. 8 million people, that's more than half the state's populations. Tennessee has a population of around 8 million people. That is the population of our entire state that has come through. $400 billion a year is what we know we pay on the front end. That doesn't include the criminal cases, the loss of life, the loss of income, the injury that's happened to Americans by some of these illegals coming over. Granted, the vast majority of them are just hardworking people wanting a better life for their families. But it's not their responsibility of the American taxpayers to fund all these do-good programs, just like they're doing in California. They've magnetized the state of California. Once again, free health care for those folks. And Mayorkas is the tip of the spear on this. He's continuously said there's nothing wrong with what's going on at the border. It's functioning. Then they try to blame Trump. And we all know that's a lie. Yet the mainstream media, that's what they harp on. This is out of control, man. This is, if you just take in alone the folks that are on the terrorist watch list, I believe it's over 400 now, and the mules bringing in fentanyl, and the sex trade with the children, and the cartels that basically just thumb their nose at this country. And Mexico, in the last negotiations a few weeks ago, President Biden went down there and they basically told us what to do.
Let me ask you one last thing before I let you go, because we're running out of time here. I got to ask about Hunter Biden. That contempt markup is supposed to happen this week as well. You guys have a really busy week ahead of you. The DOJ is not likely to prosecute him. So what can oversight do? I mean, what can your committee do to try to bring him in and finally depose him? I mean, how far are you willing to take it?
I think we ought to follow the law. If we just follow the law, the border, the budget, Hunter Biden, we'd be okay. The problem is there's two sets of laws in this country. There's the big shots, folks like Epstein and his crowd, and the president. There's no law enforcement.
But what do you mean by that, Congressman? Like, what would you guys be willing to do?
I say we bring him in. We bring him in, whether it's in chains or handcuffs or what have you. Send the sergeant at arms out to bring him in because he is flaunting the law. He is violating the law. They've taken in $30 million, the Biden family has, and there's no proof that they've paid any taxes on it. They've been in bed with the communist Chinese, part of this money. The last deal was a huge deal, over $5 million with Hunter and his dad and his uncle that was involved. And there's still no proof they paid taxes on it. And these are our enemies, man, that they're doing business with. You got to ask.
Well, there's a lot more investigative work to be done by your committee, and we'll look forward to that in the new year. We just ran out of time, Congressman. I'm sorry. I could talk to you all day, and I will catch you on the House steps when I return to Capitol Hill. We'll see you then. Thank you, Congressman Burchett.
Great to see you. Thank you.